Hi students, I am Dr. M. Ashraf Majroo, Professor of Community Medicine. I welcome you in the learning session of ergonomics, and this is the third session of occupational health. So the highlights of this session are the definition and scope of ergonomics, the subspecialties of ergonomics, the anthropometry in occupational health, the biomechanics in occupational health, work physiology, human factor engineering and in ergonomics, and general approach, workplace safety and health. So these are the highlights of the today. We will start one by one for the brief description of these highlights. So first of all, what is ergonomics? The study of interaction between man and machine and adjustment of the human body with the machine in a way to ensure the maximum comfort and least stress at workstation. So this is the definition, and basically this is the art of creating harmony between the task demand, physical and mental capacities and workplace environment. You can appreciate that there must be harmony between the task demands and the physical capabilities of the worker, and at the same time there must be consideration of mental demands of the worker, and the workplace environment must be comfortable. So this is the model of harmony between various functions, and this is achieved through through exercising the subject of ergonomics. The main stakeholders of ergonomics are the workers and the industrial owners, but the technical team which involves in the subject of ergonomics is a complex disciplines. Ergonomist Ergonomy is a specialist subject that deals with the ergonomics, and then healthcare providers are stakeholder, anthropologists and psychologists and engineers. So this is how this subject is evolved. Now the goals of ergonomics, what should be achieved through the ergonomy, the designing human compatible facilities at workplaces like furnitures, and designing human compatible tools and equipments, and human factor automation or engineering to reduce the stress at the workstations. The human capability mean minimizing the physical and mental stress arising at workplaces. So these are the goals of ergonomics. Now the components of ergonomics. Ergonomic is a composite subject which is evolved from the four components, and these components are anthropometry, occupational biomechanics, work physiology, and human factor engineering. So just to define what is anthropometry, the anthropometry is the measurement and statistical characterization of the body size. It helps to design furniture and tools and machines. Then occupational biomechanics. It is the study of mechanical properties of human musculoskeletal system, and the objectives are to reduce exertion, sprains, injuries, and related musculoskeletal disorders. Similarly, work physiology The response of the human systems, cardiovascular system, respiratory system, musculoskeletal system to metabolic demand of the work. So the physiology of work is dealing with the demands. It prevents the generalized and localized fatigue to the human body. Then is the engineering methods to reduce the psychological stress in workers. This is the human factor engineering, and the warning buzzers, gaze and signs and instructions. These tools, they will reduce the stress at the workplaces. So the ergonomics deals with all these four components, and we will describe in this session one by one. First of all, we deal with the um, anthropometry. The anthropometry is subdiscipline of ergonomics dealing with making measurements of the human body and interpreting variation in terms of statistical profiles. And what are these statistical profiles? We interpret it in the terms of mean, ranges, then deviation and variations. The deviation and variations are depicting in terms of population to population variation, person to person variation, and biological variation of the segments, body segments. So this is the anthropometry and its profiles. But all the above measures are in order to recommend the tools and equipment and machines compatible to human body. The ultimate objective of the anthropometry is the human compatible tools. So how the anthropometry works, the steps in anthropometry. The anthropometry is known since early 19th century. Various tools were developed to measure the various calipers, to measure the size of the body, head size, and other dimensions of the body. So the steps in anthropometry are generation of data, and then the data tabulation, and then data utilization. So these are three steps in anthropometry. The data coding and tabulation consist of first the demographic information. It specifies the population from where the data, anthropometric data is generated, so that for the generalization of that data will be indicated through the demographic. Usually the specific demographic area can utilize those tabulation and coding of the data. The data, anthropometric data, is presented in various dimensions of the humans, and I will give you the examples how these dimensions are measured. So first is the standing posture. The standing posture is measured. There is one fixed landmark, that is the floor. Floor is the landmark, and if the person is standing erect, then in erect posture the various dimensions, they are starting from the top of the head, that is the stature or height of the person. Then next landmark, eye, then shoulder, then elbow, then mid-arm, forearm, and then wrist and knuckle, and then tip of the finger. How these are named, these dimensions: the standing height, eye height, shoulder height, elbow height. And similarly the wrist height, knuckle height, and fingertip height. These are the standing posture dimensions. Then horizontal and vertical spans. You see the horizontal span, it is commonly known as arm span, and then there is elbow span. The other spans, vertical spans, are the vertical grip reach, the forward grip reach, and the forward fingertip reach, and um, then sitting posture dimensions. You can appreciate from this the landmark. There are two fixed landmarks. One is the sitting seat of the person, and then is the floor. These distances, these heights are measured, and they are named as the sitting height, number 14, and number 15 is sitting eye height. Then similarly, sitting shoulder height, sitting elbow height, and then knee height. On this side, you can appreciate at number 20 the buttock popliteal length and the buttock knee length, and this is the chest depth. So these are the sitting posture of the anthropometric. This is the anthropometric data which is tabulated and ultimately generated. Then sitting posture, more dimension, the shoulder breadth, the hip breadth, and similarly the upper arm length and forehead length. So these are the sitting posture dimensions. Then the head and foot. In head and foot, we have the hand length. You can appreciate here. This is from the wrist crease to the fingertip, and then the breadth is from maximum projection to the index finger. Then grip diameter, you can appreciate here number 28, the grip diameter, and then foot length and foot breadth. So this is almost completed the anthropometric data which is generated. Then anthropometry for automation and digitalization, the more fine measurements are required, and these are required for the recent advancement robotic and automation purpose. The finger measurements are required to design more fine tools where hands are used, like knobs, steering handles, and automation functions. The uses of anthropometry. The anthropometry used by the manufacturer for anthropometric data, and they design the comfortable workstation, the ergonomically designed tools, and improved safety for the worker and improved productivity. Anthropometric data is also used for anticipation evaluation of the stressors at workplaces. The development of personal protection techniques is also designed through the anthropometric data. Then we will move on to the occupational biomechanics. This is very interesting subject. It deals with it is the subdiscipline of ergonomics and concerns the mechanical properties of the body tissue, particularly the resistance of the body tissue to the mechanical stresses. So what are these stresses? The sprains and strains, the forceful extension and rotation, the awkward traumatic postures, whole body vibrations, the repetitive long exposure to above factors. So these are basically 4 factors, and if they are repeatedly, then the exposure become more. So the occupational biomechanics deals to reduce all these risks at workplaces. So the usual mechanical risk in the uh, dealing with the biomechanics are the repetitive sustained extensions, the forceful flexion, ulnar deviations, wrist flexion and hyperextension, forearm and shoulder extreme reach, axial twisting and lateral bending, and prolonged sitting. So these are the risks to be dealt in biomechanics. What are the ultimate impact of the on musculoskeletal impact when the body is exposed? This is the exposure time on the y-axis, and on the x-axis is the time. Um, uh, the risk, the characteristic of the risk on the vertical axis, and the time of exposure on the x-axis. The fatigue is the first, then it progress to discomfort, pain, injury, and disability. So this is the sequence of appearing of these musculoskeletal disorders while the peoples they are exposed to mechanical stresses at the workplaces. Then stressful bending here can be depicted from the picture, and then rotation, neck rotation and arm rotation. This is backward pushing. The risk associated with this sort of posture or movement is the back sprain, the disc herniation, lumbago sciatica. Similarly, on this side, you can appreciate back injuries, shoulder dislocation, neck sprains, and arm sprains. A more stressful reach you can appreciate here. These are all stressful reach, and this is the safe process in lifting. And the muscle fatigue is associated with the shoulder sprains and tendinitis and tensosynoviitis. These are the clinical syndrome associated with such sort of postures. Then grip, stressful grips, you see here the wrist flexion and the hook grip and then wrist flexion. Um, and these are a few pictures showing the stressful wrist flexion, and this is the better. So what happened when these stressful muscle fatigue, carpal tunnel syndrome, and tendinitis and tendinosynoviitis. These are the disorders associated here. This is the list. One is the tendinitis and tendinosynoviitis. The repetitive wrist motions, repetitive shoulder movements, a sustained hyperextension of the arm, and prolonged load on the shoulder will lead to these disorders. And the symptoms are pain, weakness, swelling, burning sensation, and dull aches over the affected area. Then carpal tunnel syndrome is most frequently occurring. This is due to the repetitive wrist motions and pain, numbness, tingling, burning sensation, a wasting of the muscles at the base of the thumb and dry palm. These are the symptoms. Then de Quervain's disease, a repetitive hand twisting and forceful gripping, pain at the base of the thumb. Thoracic outlet syndrome, prolonged shoulder flexion and extension, arm above the shoulder height, carrying load on the shoulder, and the pain, numbness and swelling of the hand are the symptoms. Then tension neck syndrome, prolonged restricted portion, pain occur in the neck. So these are the disorder associated with the um, risk with the these disorders associated with awkward movement, not the movement which are not recommended usually. Then quantifying and classifying the lift. The object weight is taken as L. The vertical location is taken as V. Horizontal location is taken as H. Lift distance is taken as D. The frequency of lift F. Less than 1 hour is the occasional lift and more than 1 hour is continuous lift. By using these indicators, the formula can be generated for the quantifying the lift force. So first of all is the acceptable lift is equal to 40 multiplied by HF multiplied by VF multiplied by DF and multiplied by FF. So when acceptable lift is determined, then maximum permissible lift is 3 times the acceptable lift, and if the lift is exceed, then more than 3 times the hazardous lift. So this is how the mechanically the lift is in biomechanics the lifts are quantified. Then what action can be taken on the lift if it is acceptable, then no action. A maximum permissible lift, then alternate are recommended, alternate mechanical functions. Then horizontal hazardous lift. In hazardous lift, the administrative action is required. The process is stopped and not recommended that process. So this was about the biomechanics. Now we will move to the work physiology. This is another discipline of ergonomics. It concerns the measurement of response of cardiovascular system, respiratory system and musculoskeletal system and metabolic demand of the work. The metabolic demand of the work, it is for the prevention of the body from the localized fatigue and prevention of the body from the generalized fatigue. The physical work capacity is the most important indicator used in work physiology. The metabolic demand of the job can be expressed in terms of energy expenditure in kilocalories or British thermal unit per minute, known as physical work capacity. So quantifying this physical work capacity will indicate the body demand and body response, and these are measured, the physical work capacities are measured by indirect calorimetry, the table concentration and the elemental analysis of work task. All these three physiological equipment, they are used to quantify the physical work capacity. It is interesting to note the energy expenditure should not exceed 6.5 kilocalorie per minute for casual short work duration task, and for continuous 8-hour lift task, the rate of expenditure of energy should not exceed 3.5 kilocalories per minute. This is the occupational safety standard limits for the physical work capacity. So in ergonomics, this should be in work physiology, physical work. In occupational work physiology, these indicator must be considered to avoid the generalized and localized fatigue in the muscles. Then we will move on to human factor engineering. The human factor engineering basically deals with the automation of the human functions. It is the science and art of automation of human factors in intention to reduce the physical and mental stress during the uh, interaction with the machine. So the objectives of this human factor engineering are to enhance the human prescience, then to reduce the mental stress and tiredness, to enhance the safety of the worker, to enhance the speed of the work, and to enhance the work quality. Uh, uh, these are the objectives of human factor engineering. Then human factor automation, what we mean by human factor, this is the simple automation mean the power breakers, the timers, auto stops, indicators, status gauges and buzzers. These are the small automation in the machine that can reduce the mental stress of the worker. Then a repetitive task automation process, the repetitive task, they can be automated like mixing, filling, picking, and similarly transport within the industry. These automations are automations. Then robotic automation for mass production are used now. Industry 4 level industry 3 to 4 level industry use this automation. And then digital complex automation. In this, the machine act as co-worker for the human beings, and co-working of the machine is the now advanced technology of the automation. So this is how this human factor engineering, in my opinion, the human factor engineering has dominated the technology, industrial technology, and even it is used by the industrialist for the management purpose. Now, in historical evolution, before the industrial era, there was mostly the manual work, but the industry started in 18s, and the industry have been developed from many phases, and these phases can be described as the industry 1. This is the mechanization phase where the steam engine and the simple machines were invented and used. And then second phase, the industry 2 is the mass production. Here you can see there is mass production, and in this the development, the automation has been advanced. In 20th century, the industry 3 automation, robotic function came, and the human were replaced from the repetitive work and at mass production level. Then now the industry 4 is the digital process where the digitalization and computer automation has came into existence, and now it is dominant. Now the industry of today, industry 5, the machine is now co-worker in industry, and in these development they are both beneficial and dangerous for the human being. Initially, the automation or the human factor engineering was designed um, uh, to improve the precision and safety and speed of work. But now the speed is so increased, this fastness and precision and extreme automation is potential social threat to skilled worker. That means the skills are so quickly advancing that the skilled worker, they are becoming jobless. So this is one of the side effect of more advancement. So in conclusion, what is ergonomic? The daddy, what ergonomy is, the baby, it is making children tall enough not to have dads bend so much. So with this, thank you very much.